It's about history. It's about preservation. It's about sense of place here on Eastern Long Island. With Esperanza Leon, I'm Irwin Levy, and this is Our Hamptons. Esperanza, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Irwin.
3 good mornings this morning. Esperanza, I really am excited to introduce our special guest because this is really, Esperanza, here's a line we've said, many times before about how in our community, oftentimes street names are named after the ancestors that live on that. And we sort of have that today because there is a street in East Hampton Village called McGuirk Street. That's MC, capital G-U-R-K. And
U-I-R-K.
U-I-R-K. And our special guest was actually scolding me. I saw her visually about saying, because she was making the same correction. But without further ado, please let us welcome Susan McGuirk. Susan, we're so excited you're here. Thank you. Now, Susan, to be clear, well, you mentioned to me that you weren't born here, but you moved here when you were a few months old. Am I correct?
I was. My dad was in the Air Force, and both are from here. My mother was a McGuire. My dad was a McGuirk, and he came home and married her. Then we came back to East Hampton. He wanted to stay in the military. She wanted to come home. So we came back here. And I was born in 1954, and they built a small house in 1956 to move into here on McGuirk Street. And that's where we started here, our generation growing up here.
I'm going to assume that McGuirk Street was once a farm.
Well, McGuirk Street, I don't know all of the streets.
The whole area.
Most likely, most people had small farms on their property. I did ask my dad before he passed away what was here when he was young, and he described everything to me, and I wrote it down, and I gave it to the East Hampton Long Island collection for their references. I've done a few things with that with my dad and my mom before they passed. I wrote things down from them and gave it to the library. But what happened was my great-grandmother was a widow, and she was one of the gays from the gay road that had the livery stables there. And she built a boarding house here on Newtown Lane because she needed to make money. The railroad came to East Hampton in 1895, and she built her house here. It was 1903, and she boarded basically chauffeurs. So my grandfather was about 14 when he came back and lived here, and they lived basically in the attic when they rented. And she ran the boarding house with the chauffeurs. It was like like the one part of the house was just like for lots of people to sleep in.
Quite entrepreneurial for her day, right? I mean, she said
this is a theme, though. This is a story that repeats because we know that here, where I live here in Wainscott, 1904, Mrs. Osborne, Louisa Edwards Osborne, did exactly the same thing. That built a house, and it was to board the summer visitors, whether or not they were chauffeurs or other people. But this is a theme right after the train started bringing more and more summer visitors.
And Esperanza, if you recall, in our episode 2, podcast 2, and Sue, we're now on, I think, 110. I've lost count, but in our episode 2, we spoke about how the upstreeters in East Hampton Village would decamp to their to their camps on 3 Mile Harbor Road to let these rooms out. So while they may not have been boarding houses per se, it was conceptually, it was the same thing. And then, of course, there was the Appoquog, which was a boarding house. But really fascinating stuff, Sue. So she built this on Newtown Lane. And your entire family, you mentioned to me, and when you were growing up, when you were a little girl, you were really surrounded by your cousins and all of your extended family. Tell us what that was like, what that community was like in your formative years as a young girl growing up. Paint that picture for our audience of what
One
Newtown Lane,
picture.
that section of McGuirk was all about?
Um, well, one day I rode my bicycle too far down Newtown Lane, and a cousin I didn't know rode his bicycle too far down Gould Street. So reunited the families back then, the columns. But when I down McGuirk Street, Phoebe McGuire, and she had 21 children, in which 19 lived.
Oh,
She didn't start out here, but she was here, and she was around till about 19, I think 58. I was
mm-hmm.
really young, and I also had cousins from my dad's side. From the gay side, lived down the street.
But there were when you were growing up. I mean,
They
was
were
it like,
here, yes, they
yeah,
were here,
your
right on
neighbors?
McGuirk Street.
I remember when we had a little phone dialogue, it was it was that side of the tracks. It was just a neighborhood, right? Of just people, right?
Neighborhood of people that worked, kids. It was a lot of fun growing up here. It really was.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And the house you're living in, you currently live on Newtown Lane. And am I correct? And you've lived in this house that you're living in 4 different times over the course of your life.
So, yes, 1956 we moved in, and we moved out about early 60s to the big house.
Right.
And then I
The
came
big
here
the big house meeting the boarding
the
house.
boarding house.
Right.
And then I came here when we were building a house. I came here when we were getting divorced, and then I came here when my parents passed. I bought my 2 sisters out and came back home. So,
Oh my gosh.
so
Right. So, because
yes.
there was a period of time you were away, you went away to school and whatnot. You relayed your own personal story. Something drew you
Exactly.
back here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, much like your mother wanted to stay home. I mean, what brought you back?
I just came back home after college and just got a job here and just stayed here. I was a Sag Harbor Elementary School librarian for over 30 years. I love East Hampton.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't we all? And that is why we do this.
Now, going back a little further back, you spoke about your grandmother McGuirk. She was a Rayner. Now, Rayner is early settlers of Southampton, Esperanza.
Yes.
And, I wanted to bring this story because this also relates to one of our episodes about number 1 Main Street. Now, Grandma McGuirk was a telephone operator. Did she work at the 1 Main Street location, which is
Yeah, I believe she and her sister Judy were the first operators there and the last operators there.
Oh,
And
Amazing.
I think they may have been down Main Street or Edwards Pharmacy. The Star is where they had a telephone at the time too.
oh,
So if you wanted to know where your mom was, she wasn't home, you pick up the telephone and you hope you get your grandmother and ask her if she knew where she was.
oh,
So
oh
That's
my,
amazing. I love that.
oh my
Love that.
gosh, Esperanza. I- You know, I almost want to stop now. I mean, to have an ancestor working the switchboard at 1 Main Street, that is just amazing. Like, and going down the block to the East Hampton Star building. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a very different time, and of course, sort of romanticize the past sometimes. But you live this, and just like what you're describing, also to me, it's sort of, I feel like I still caught sort of the tail end of that time, of that era in some ways. That there was still that very small town feel with the 5 and 10 and diamonds and Parsons
Mm.
Electric, and kind of it takes a village to raise a child. And like I grew up that way in East Hampton for sure.
that's nice. My dad worked at Parsons Electrics.
Grandma McGuirk also, according to what you were telling me, worked for the news company and Ben Barnes, right? She was writing for the newspaper, or is that what?
Just
Yeah, the news
it was a store that sold
A store,
newspapers
okay.
and
yeah,
magazines and candy and just all kinds
the
of things.
news company sold newspapers,
Newspapers and magazines,
magazines. Yeah.
basically. You go there every Sunday to get your paper. You could park on Main Street and you could cross the road easily, get your paper and cross the road back.
Were the
And
cars
get it.
parked diagonally at that time?
No, they were not.
Okay.
They were not.
I actually had that one written down, Esperanza, because I wanted to know that also.
Oh,
So
really?
so thank you for clearing that up, Sue. Now, and you also told us how you're talking about your grandparents. Grandpa McGuirk was a local plumber in town. I guess is that, and Pop McGuire, now he worked at Cove Hollow Farm and
Yes.
as the head herdsman. Now, what was Cove Hollow Farm at this era specifically? What was
Dairy farm.
right? Because I remember we did an episode about the dairy farms of East Hampton, and we spoke about Dune Alpin, and we spoke about a couple of the others.
It was a whole swath of,
Right,
basically from Montauk Highway or above Montauk Highway down to the ocean,
right,
right?
yeah, right. Because there was one in Georgia too. Fulling Mill was also a dairy farm. Now these farms were not, while contiguous, they were still separate owners. They might have all small industry. Everyone knew each other, but they were all independent, right? Sue, Pop McGuire strictly worked at Cove Hollow Farm.
He did. He ran it until his death in 1975. He died on the farm, going to
Oh.
work, getting ready to go to work.
I look at places all the time and think, what did this look like
And,
40, 50 years ago or 100 years ago?
right.
Or, right?
And I'm creating that mental image while we should be talking because we're recording a podcast, but I can't help it. I'm thinking, I'm thinking of Grandma McGuirk, inside One Main Street, while Pop McGuire is on Cove Hollow Farm running the dairy farm. I mean, this is just a really a time capsule of East Hampton. So, but I guess we do have to continue it along because now, Sue, you married a Talmadge.
East Hampton Springs, I
Right.
mean,
We create the scene for our audience. We had a McGuirk marrying a Talmadge, right? So, Sue, was this like a royal wedding?
No, none of us had money. So
got married in the house.
basically, no, I married a Springs Talmadge.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I lived in Springs part-time for a long time, for about 11 years. I lived in Springs,
Mm.
Right.
on their family compound.
There's a few roads named after the Talmadges. There's one in East Hampton Village, right opposite the IGA, and then further down into Springs. Talmadge Farm Lane obviously was, I'm sure, had some sort of connection. But now, Sue related a story to me, Esperanza, which this is sort of is a fascinating thing to me because there were a couple of family compounds here. And now, I know these compounds. This is I bike ride past that sign every day that says Talmadge Meadows off of Springs Fireplace Road. I mean, I see that sign all the time. And now, so this is that's the compound that you lived on when you first got married, Sue. Like when you married Mr.
Yeah,
Talmadge.
1987, we moved down there. We get married in 1980.
Okay.
1987, we moved
Oh,
down there.
right. And this is a compound that's a series of Talmadge homes down there. And there is this magnificent, vistas of
Yeah,
Accabonac Harbor. It's just
right.
beautiful over there. Just uh, transformative, really. So you live there, and then now you have children, and your children actually lived there as adults on the compound. Am I correct?
There, and they still own the property that their dad has passed.
Right.
So they still own the property there and they rent it out.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they no longer live in East Hampton.
My three daughters married Florida men, so they live in Florida.
Oh.
Gives you
All
someplace to
three
go,
of
I
them.
guess.
Oh.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
They come
Another
home
story
someday.
that's familiar, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they come back aside from visit? So their houses are rented, so they come back and visit you, but they're not moving back there for extended periods of time. But the two compounds still do exist. Now, when you were living there early on, with your husband, I guess we could even say before you had children, I mean, were there other Talmadges living down there?
Before we got married, there was only one house on the lot that was his parents, and then they split it up so each kid got a lot. So,
Nice. Wow,
you
that
know,
is
it
just
took a while. We had to go through the town and all that. So
Right, right. The whole
it took
system.
years, actually.
I'm sure.
But
I'm sure.
it
Yeah.
happened.
now. If we sort of bring this, I mean, Esperanza, I so want to stay in this time period, but I think we're going to try to bring it into present day a little bit and then maybe go backwards again. I think that might be the way to sort of tie all of these loose ends together. So obviously, Sue, now if we go chronologically here, of amongst the three of us, all right, you've been here the longest. Esperanza moved here when she was a little girl, so she's been here since really her formative years. We're going to say late 70s, early 80s. What's that?
Mid 70s.
Mid 70s. Okay. And of course, me being an interloper, I didn't get here till 1989. So we've all, and this is true, I guess, of anybody who's been here for any kind of extended amount of time, we've all witnessed change. And human nature, Esperanza, we all romanticize the past. You probably romanticize it more than me, and Sue probably romanticizes it more than all of us because of just the length of time. But Sue, I'll just say it. Now, you're still here, and you still want to be here, and you still love it here. But over a lifetime, what is it that still keeps you here? With all the change and obviously with appreciation and everything else, so many people have so many options if they wanted to leave. What is it that makes you say, this is my home, I want to be here?
I still have a lot of relatives here. The dead are buried here, my family. And I just love East Hampton. It's where I grew up. I like its history. I think it's full of history, and I like to look into that and write it down. And I'm trying to give that to my family. I've been writing some things down for them. That's basically it.
Writing it down, like just putting your thoughts down, is this something formal, like you're writing a memoir, something like that, or is it really just sort of informally kind of doing this?
Mason-laws that have really taken an interest in the family history. So I've been writing things down to them, and I give them things here and there about what the family. And my grandmother was from Ireland, so we have my grandfather was one of 19 children, and his brother married my grandmother, married my grandfather, obviously, but this brother married her sister.
Yeah.
So we have the two Irish grandmothers and the two local boys that got married. Oh. So we have that going on too.
Yeah. I think that what you said, Sue, I relate to very well. Now you made me think about it, that I have such a deep appreciation for the history of this place as well. And I think that when you have that, it makes it that much easier to you're grounded, and you have a greater sense of place, and you're able to perhaps transcend the changes, in some ways negative, in some ways positive, but you're able to kind of keep yourself invested in this place because of that rich history and that connection to it. And so I relate to that in what you said, because I think that if I didn't have that, I would be more eager to maybe leave and go someplace else. But I can't think. My children were asking me just this weekend, where would you want to live if it weren't, if you weren't in East Hampton? And I couldn't think of anything.
That's right.
I agree.
Right. I mean, do your daughters live in the same Florida neighborhood? Like, are they close by, or are they in all different parts of the state?
Well, they're on the West Coast, but they're like an hour away
Right.
from each other. So I go down in the winter time, and I live on the same street as one of my daughters.
Right. Okay.
So,
right. So okay. So yeah, like, so it's sort of the best of all worlds.
Yes.
They call that they used to call that a snowbird. I don't know if that term is still around.
They still do. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they still do. But Esperanza, that's a really interesting way you put that across, because. And it's really something. Maybe that's a good way to start closing out this episode. Like delving into that. I mean, again, it's so many of these family connections that Sue has, which is sort of a little bit different from your experience, Esperanza.
Completely
different, right?
Right.
Right.
I don't know, in my past, of course, I went to school with many of these people.
Right.
This is a small town after all, so you
Was
still are very connected with people.
But I think that's such an important point to make because it really, when you think about it, someone like Susan, who's really, for lack of a better term, we can call her an East Hampton lifer, has such a different connection, just the ancestral connections and all of past generations. It's there's such a depth there, and look, obviously, Susan, you've seen the changes. You've seen the changes at your end of Newtown Lane, which you described to me as when you were living there. It was just it was just a neighborhood. Esperanza, if you recall, when we interviewed Paul Goldberger, and we were reflecting back on his 1980 magazine piece about the East End of Long Island, he referred to how that section was the other side of the tracks. It was just a neighborhood. It wasn't Hamptonized.
Well, I mean, Irwin, I remember Gould Street wasn't Gould Street, it was just a big field. And
Right.
I remember that.
Full Street, but it was a dead end.
Well, I just remember going into a field and getting my first tick ever.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
it was a potato field when I was young, and then
There you
the
go.
Bispings opened it up, and then they started selling the lots little by
Right,
little.
but
So
this is like what, 1980s? I can't
it
remember,
was a
but
long
it
time
doesn't.
ago.
To me, it doesn't feel that long ago, and
Yeah,
so it's just all those changes that
but that was the connection that really kept Sue here, right? And your daughters married men from Florida, so they left. But did other parts of your family, your extended family, be it McGuirks, be it Talmadges, be it whomever, did they? Well, this isn't the same place. We're going to sell and move to X, Y, or Z. Did you lose a lot of them, or were they as connected as you?
Well, the difficult one to answer. Sometimes they stayed where they were for jobs, and but do have some kids here. We have 3 kids here
Right.
that have stayed, and we do have a 6th generation living on McGuirk Street right now.
Wow.
So, and everybody comes home as a rule. Everybody comes home, especially in the summers. You
At some
know.
point, yeah.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
so now, currently, you have one sister that still lives in the neighborhood with you.
A sister and a brother, and then we own a 4th house that we rent. A lot of us.
So there's still a core of you still. Okay,
Yes,
that's a faith restorer for me, Esperanza.
we're trying.
Right, right.
yeah, it other there are so many others who just haven't been able to do that. And but I feel like you, Sue, are like a little bit of the glue in all of this. I feel like you're holding the family story and writing it down and collecting it. And you were a teacher, a librarian, or a librarian, so that makes sense that you have this. You're compelled to do that and do it well, probably. So I think I see you more as that glue that people, you're saying your grandnieces are, interested in this history. Sometimes that's all it takes. And you can have that one person that will perpetuate your work. And it's so important because I think every family needs a Sue. Every family needs that person that will hold the family history and keep it in people's memories.
Trying. I'm really trying because it's very hard when a lot of people have left, and it's very hard. It's so easy to make the money. It's just so easy to leave. And I
That's
just am being very stubborn about it. So that's why my daughters keep the Springs house, and they'll most likely keep this house too.
I- you
Yeah.
know I didn't want to use a term which I'm going to end up using anyway because I guess Esperanza, my Queens, is going to come out again. But there's a term you hear out here. It's people, and you hear it anywhere, not just out here. Hey, we can cash out, right? We can cash out. The property values here are frankly insane, as we all know, and we could go and live a lot easier less expensive place to live, whatever, elsewhere. But again, and it gets back, Esperanza, it gets back thematically to just everything we've been talking about over the years, the special sauce of this place and everything else. But that's really, I think, almost where we should really start closing this episode down, that Sue is the embodiment of what this place is, and to her credit and her grandniece's credit, the next generation, or even two generations if it's a grandniece, but that also sense that and feel that, right? And maybe, Esperanza, that's what we hope, for your children to feel as they get older, right? That's our only hope, almost, in keeping what we have here. Does that make sense?
It does. And my grandnieces are young, but they love living in this family compound. They love it.
Yeah.
It's very special for them. Oh, it's special for me too, because my kids aren't here. So
yes, and yes, and you are able, I think that you're instilling these things in them is what's most important. Like, my children will make fun of me sometimes because I'll say, oh, that used to be that, and we're all always sort of hearkening back.
Right.
But I think it's really important, even if they kind of, brush it off right now, it's sinking in, it's in there. And I don't want it to be like that death by a thousand cuts, or like the boiling the pot of water, right? But because I know that for them, it's very easy to just look around and say, well, this is what we live with right now, and not have any connection to what came before. That's a lot of people do that, but you are doing otherwise. And that's so important, because that keeps this place alive in everybody.
It's almost like a kind of grounding in a way, Esperanza,
Yeah,
right?
I
Like
said that earlier, and I do think that.
It's a grounding, and Sue, honestly, we're going off the outline here, which is okay, because that's what happens in our Hamptons podcast. But the fact, it's almost as if, for me, this is my perception from this dialogue, that Sue is almost imparting those values of community to her grandnieces. And again, this is part of it is Sue being who she is, but part of it is the grandnieces wanting that. And that's a magic formula, Esperanza.
Yeah.
When my grandsons come, well, my 4 grandsons, because they're older, I'm going to show them where everything is in the house that goes along with the family history. I have 2 that are very interested in, one's interested in history, one's interested in the family, and the other 2 don't like to be left out, so they'll listen. That's the plan for the summer when they come.
That's wonderful.
That's really,
it's the most important thing that you can do, because anything else, I think people lose their identity. They just lose their identity. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And, Esperanza, we've spoken about this on prior episodes. I've literally had people say, really, there's a history here? Like, honestly, like you're dumbfounded when you hear this. Any place has a history, but this place has a rich one. And you hear something like that, and it's
like a slap in the face.
Yeah. Well, I want to slap him in the face, but I don't. But,
no, but you feel slapped.
Well, that's true, Esperanza. I feel slapped in the face, and I want to do the slapping. But so that's very true. But wow, that's. Honestly, and so really, if hearing this, the story is just really so heartwarming and beautiful, but the culmination of it in imparting this to the next generations, plural, is really wow. You're giving a legacy to those children that they're going to hopefully take on. And Susan McGuirk of McGuirk Street, with a lineage of Gay Lane and everything else. We could go on and on. Oh my gosh. Sue, before I thank you profusely and probably embarrass you with my thank yous, is there any final point you want to share with our audience before we sign off?
They went up street or below the bridge. We always went down street.
There you go. I
Oh.
love that. I love it. That's great.
Oh.
Thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. Esperanza, if only I could really shut myself up and leave it there, but inevitably I can't. But
I was thinking, I feel a tour coming on, a down street tour.
I that's going to be a sidebar after we sign off. But yes, we're going to have to talk about that because that's really a beautiful history. Susan McGuirk, on behalf of Our Hamptons podcast, really thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning. You were really a wonderful guest, and really thanks for being here. Esperanza, as always, a pleasure.
Until next time. Thank you, Sue.
Until next time. Thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Our Hamptons are released every other Tuesday. Find them wherever you get your podcasts.